All right, GDP. GDP, what is GDP? GDP is gross domestic product. And there were some little buttons down below that told you what reference number 1 meant, what a growth rate meant. Check that out. So GDP is gross domestic product. Gross domestic products. So that's like how much is produced, how much money is made in New Jersey every year. So I have looked this up, and I found a few years ago, New Jersey made about $635 billion worth of stuff in that year. And then I also found that their gross domestic product was growing at a rate of 1.80%. Okay. We want to write an equation that can be used to estimate the size of New Jersey's economy. So gross domestic product is one way we measure the economy of a state or country or region in a future year, assuming the same relative yearly growth rate. Okay, so here's my growth rate up there. So they're telling me that R is equal to 1.8%. That 0 is not significant. Remember, percent means divide by 100. So that's 1.8 over 100. Which is 0.0018. Did I do that right? Move that decimal place 1, 2. Ooh, no, I did not do that right. I'm going to double check that on a calculator. 1.8. And again, this would be 1% there and 0.8% there. 1% is 1 out of 100, and my 1 is in the hundredths position, so that looks better to me. So that's my rate. And we're starting at that 635 billion. So start at 635 billion. I'm just going to put the word billion there instead of all the zeros. And we want to make an equation for this to estimate the size of their economy, their gross domestic product. G is the GDP. So that's what I'm trying to calculate in T years from now. So this is a lot like interest rate growth. And our formula for that was the future value for yearly growth was equal to the present value times 1 plus R to the power T. So that's the equation we're going to use here because I'm given a yearly growth rate. And they're telling me to use a G instead of an F. The present current value is 635. And I'm not going to put the zeros because it says in billions already. So 635 is billions times 1 plus, that rate is a decimal, 0.018. Parentheses to the power T. Now I can clean this up a little bit because I can do the 1 plus in my head. That's 1.018 to the power T. And out front, I have times 635. So that should be my equation here. Let's double check I got my percent right. This is something you should do too when you're playing with percents. On your calculator, take the given percent, mine was 1.8, divide by 100 to turn it to a decimal, and there's my 0.018. All right, next part. This equation is in the blank family. Okay, so my usual choices are linear, exponential, or quadratic. And since this uses a percent change, the variable is exponent, this is exponential. So I would select the option here called exponential. And then use the equation to determine New Jersey's GDP 7 years from now. So I just plug in 7 years for this one. So this will be 635 times 1.018 to the power 7. And we ask our calculator, what is that? Now notice they have the word billions on the outside, so I don't need to add any zeros here. Your numbers will be a little bit different. Probably got a different state, but some of you may have New Jersey also. And this is real data from the Treasury Department, 1.018, raised to the power, I got 7 years later. So mine is 719 billion 7 years after they were worth 635 if they keep growing at 1.8%. And to the nearest billion. So mine would just be 719 here. This is exponential. And then choose the right variables. They also remind me here to use G. 635 times 1.018 raised to the power. There's a power button there. T, right? And I can click on the T or type T. And until I type it correctly, it's going to give me that 6 syntax error. So if I put an X there, it's going to yell at me, whoa, check your variables. You might be using the wrong variable, right? So read those red warnings and I get no error. Now, just because there's no error doesn't mean you're right. Hopefully you're using the numbers in the right way. But if you get a red warning, pay close attention to it. Got it.